Hey, 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 good morning, folks. It's Pastor Stephen back again with another No Frills daily devotional. And today's topic is trying God. Now, this is going to be kind of a play off of a previous episode. I've been kind of in this track of kind of being led astray. Okay, I've been tracking through Jeremiah, and that seems to be a theme that he is playing out right now as he's writing to the Israelites, more specifically, the Israelites that live in Judah. And he's been talking about this idea of being led astray and what's got you walking away from God. And now, in a previous episode, I was talking about how we are created to consume God, right? We're to feast on Him, to feast on His faithfulness, and to fill up on His presence so that what is going on around us doesn't have to impact or influence what's going on inside of us, right? So we're called to be filled with God's faithfulness. We're called to be filled with His presence. And so this video or this episode, now titled Trying God, is kind of playing off on this idea that, well, I tried that, right? Have you ever done something and you had this thought, well, that didn't work, right? Maybe it was running on a treadmill for an hour and expecting to lose 5 pounds, right? And you had this thought, well, that didn't work, right? And we do this where we try something once and we expect it to have these astounding results. And when we don't see the astounding results, we give up really quickly. I've talked about this concept before where we want the benefit, but we don't want the bill, right? We want all the things to happen our way and how we want it, but we don't want to necessarily pay the price that we need to. I want biceps, but I don't want to work out, right? And so a lot of times we do this where we try something once or we try something just part way, okay? And well, that didn't work, okay? And I tried God, Stephen. Okay, I tried God, but it didn't really work. Now, I'm going to tease that out a little bit here in just a moment, but I wanted to share a quote with you. I like to listen to a guy by the name of Craig Groeschel. He has a podcast called the Total Leadership Podcast. And Craig Groeschel says something like this: successful people do daily what ordinary people do occasionally, right? And it's this idea that we've got to be consistent and we've got to be devoted. I think, it takes something like 63 days to form a habit, right? But oftentimes we give up after the first try. Okay. And that's not how we're supposed to approach this relationship with God. Maybe your goal is to be more spiritual. Maybe your goal is to be a better follower of Christ, but you can't just try it and expect it to be an overnight change. This is something that requires daily devotion, like a No Frills daily devotional. Sorry, shameless plug. Okay, and so anyway, I tried God, Stephen, but it didn't really work. And what happens when we do that is oftentimes I think we don't realize who is playing the role of God in our lives. And I'm going to take you to the text, all right? This is Jeremiah chapter 2, and I'm going to be reading to you verse 20. And Jeremiah is, again, he's quoting God. Jeremiah is a prophet, and so God's speaking, and he's writing, all right? And so he's writing this. He says, long ago, you broke off your yoke and tore off your bonds. And you said to me, I will not serve you. And indeed, on every high hill and under every spreading tree, you lay down as a prostitute. Now, that's a tough passage. Oh my goodness, right? What is he talking about here, Stephen? Right? Well, he's hitting at this idea of I tried God, but it didn't really work out for me, right? Where we think we tend to realize that, or we need to realize who's playing the role of God when we expect God. Let me try to clarify this for you. When we expect God to serve us, right? Pause for just a second. We expect God to serve us. Okay? Who's playing the role of God when you and I expect him to serve us. If I'm expecting God to serve me, I know exactly who's trying to play the role of God. Me, right? I'm trying to play the role of God in my life when I am expecting him to serve me. And so when we expect God to serve us and our desires, we're taking on the role of God in the relationship. But here's the deal. You were not meant to play God, and I was definitely not to play God. We're destined to be called to look and think and act like Jesus. We were created in his image, but we're not God. And so when we expect him to serve us, well, I tried God and that didn't really work out for me. Well, that's because you were trying to be God and you were expecting him to serve you. And that's not how this relationship works. And ultimately, when we're trying to play God and we're expecting him to serve our needs, oftentimes we're not even necessarily taking on the role of God. Rather, we're serving our needs and our desires, where we're making our needs and our desires our God. And so we're expecting God to serve us, and we're expecting the two of us to serve these desires and these wants that we have inside of us. And God isn't in the habit of serving you, and he's definitely not in the habit of serving your desires. And so when we are expecting God to serve us, we're not making God God. And we're not even making ourselves God. We're making our desires, what we want in life, our God. And we're expecting the two of us to work together to serve that. And that is not what God is going to do, right? And we've been created to worship. That's the thing. We've been created to worship. And so because we've been created to worship, we're going to serve something. Okay? We've been created to worship, and we're gonna serve something. And the reality is we need to make that something God. Okay, we can't expect him to serve us, and we can't expect the two of us to work together to serve our desires. We need to realize that our role in this relationship is servant, not master. Now I'm going to take you to a text. Okay, I'm going to take you back into Isaiah, because as I read through Jeremiah, I'm reminded a lot of some of the things that Isaiah wrote as well. And so I'm going to take you back to, this is Isaiah chapter 44, and I'm going to read to you today verse 21. Okay, and Isaiah again was a prophet, and so here he is writing down what God is speaking. Remember these things, O Jacob, for you are my servant, O Israel. I have made you. You are my servant, O Israel, and I will not forget you. And so we can't just try God. We're called to feast on him, feast on his faithfulness, and feast on his presence, so that we can be filled, so that whatever's surrounding us isn't going to be negatively impacting us. All right, you guys? Hey, have an awesome, awesome day and be blessed.